We have seen or heard them on stage, sublime in performance. What goes on in their minds? What lies behind the choices they make, the paths they choose? Here is a glimpse into an artist's mind, an exploration of an artist's journey, both in art and in life, with a treasury of insights. It is about who they become as they evolve into artists, their transformation through the struggles in that journey. Discover the human behind the artist.
For me, it was very important to be rooted and yet to be able to fly. I didn't want to be restricted. You don't forget your roots. You don't forget your youth. You don't forget the learning. You don't forget the imbibing of all forms as you do along your journey. And then you don't forget to share and give. When you are slowing down, you change not only externally, you also change internally. This is my journey, and it's a very personal journey. It's a journey of my soul. Though I was born in Trichy, I shifted to London when I was 3 because my father was posted there with the High Commission as a railway advisor. I still have memories of it. I was so young, from 3 to 7 I was there. I still remember the parks. I remember going to Whipsonade Zoo with my little brother, Arun, and my parents. And we had an ayah there. What I remember very well is my school in London. And what I remember in school is not so much the studying or that part of it, but the extracurricular activities that I think have helped me develop into what I am today. Each one of us had to speak about a subject at the end of school. So I remember I spoke to them. There were floods in Delhi, and I spoke to everybody about how there were floods, and my aunt and family lived in Delhi, and my parents were mourning. Total fibs. But I think made me very creative, which we need to be as artists. And everyone condoled with my parents, and they said, nothing like that. Going to ballet classes is very clear. And also my learning small kuti dances, good for a kid, from my mother. All these are very, very clear. Father was posted back with the Indian Railways, so we came back. We came back by ship. It used to take 15 days by ship to come from the UK to Mumbai, then Bombay. So we travelled by ship, we came back, and then went by train to Kolkata. We stayed a couple of months in Mumbai and then shifted. Kolkata is still my favorite city. I don't know whether it is because it is from that stage in my life when you are carefree. You are like the Ganga in the Himalayas. You are skipping, you're jumping, you are leaping, you're gurgling with joy. And one thing that's very beautiful in Calcutta is this. It's so aware of aesthetics, and it's so awakened. Was it because Tagore's influence was so strong? Or was it because Tagore himself belonged to that ethos and reflected nature through his works? So I had this strong Tagore influence strong Vivekananda influence, strong Ramakrishna influence, and strong Cholbena influence also, questioning, protesting. The most formative years were spent there, school and college. My first memory of Kolkata is again dance. It is dance. It was also hearing music the moment I woke up, because somebody would be practicing sitar in a neighboring house, somebody else would be singing Robindra Sangeet, or if it was Durga Puja, you'd hear the Devi Mahatmyam on speakers as early as 4 o'clock in the morning. These are the memories I cherish. And I also cherish the memory of the panwala who used to have a little shop near college, and he would be singing Robindra Sangeet and making the pan. We used to go to buy Coca-Cola, which is 25 paisa at that time, to drink from him. So, he wouldn't be bothered. You'd go and stand there and you'll have to wait for your pan till he gets out of his musical mode. Have to change mode for him. I don't think I can remember anything like that from Chennai. Everything is more compartmentalized. Whereas there, it was all part of the general scene. Again, seeing painters paint, it would remind me, when you go to Montmartre in France, you see so many painters sitting and painting, and so many people. And not people necessarily who are professional painters or anything. Such artistry and such choice of colors. So I grew up in those environs. My father also was very particular about Bharatiya Sanskriti being continued. Amma was very worried that I would not keep up. When you're away from your native place, the way to keep your children connected to our ethos is through the arts. And that's why she started teaching me dance in London. And besides my ballet classes, she was also learning from Ram Gopal. And Ram Gopal said he wouldn't teach me. I was too tiny for him to teach. So to keep us close to our roots, I started learning Bharatanatyam, and for 10 years perhaps, one of the very few dancers who have had the privilege of training only under a Devadasi. So my entire approach to art was actually a sort of a strange combination, because here, this is where you become a Boner Paki, that is the bird of the bone or the forest, which flies freely but is still grounded. But at the same time, I learned Bharatanatyam from a traditional Devadasi. It's to all ends of the spectrum, literally. So many things from that stage of my life have made a great impact on my very approach to the arts, and they're my very approach to life. Now, when I mentioned that we had traveled by boat from England to India, that was 1957, 15 days on the boat. My brother, who is 2.25 years younger to me, Arun, he over the weekend developed brain fever. It was fever, and it was not diagnosed at that time, so there was no doctor available on the weekend. Monday, they went to the doctor, and he was treated for fever. Much later, we realized he had an attack of encephalitis, brain fever. So that fever, which was, those days there was no polio vaccine. So it was comparatively very rare coming across such situations. But he slowly started forgetting his speech. He slowly started, he would pick up words, he would talk. Everything started fading away. And finally, by the time, and the doctor said, "You're going to India, it was fever, it'll become okay." I mean, that was the the knowledge about it at that time. In the 15 days that we traveled, he had forgotten every word but Amma. After I matured, after I became older, and I thought back at to these memories, how difficult it must have been for my parents to see their son, who was totally normal, so handsome, so good looking, bubbly kid, totally losing his speech. I'm ever grateful to them. They never made me think it is something negative. They taught me how to look at it positively. They taught me how to overcome fear and transform it into love. This is something I think every parent should realize, that when they go through trauma, a kid or a sibling is going through trauma too. And you need to give precedence to that, or at least equal importance to that, and just not wallow in your own grief. So we came back to India, and they went to every doctor, every hospital, every specialist from all countries, Kovil, Kulam, everywhere, church, Masudi, ellam poi, everything they tried. But no one even understood what had happened. They said, we can't even diagnose what it is. So only later, when, studies on him were made, they realized, and medicine advanced more, that he had had an attack of brain polio. My mother realized in Kolkata that it was affecting me. I used to sit and I used to pray, and I used to imagine, because I was brought up on Ramakrishna and Vivekananda, that I thought I was a little Ramakrishna, and I would pray, and Ma Kali will come in front of me and she will say, what do you want? And then I will say, I want my brother to speak. I want my brother to speak, but there I was innocent. I hadn't yet entered my teens, was 8, 9, but she saw that I was getting affected. She didn't want me to be bogged down by it. I was at that stage, I still believed in that sort of miracle. It was only 2 or 3 years later, as I stepped into adolescence, I realized he would never speak. But she realized that I was most talented in dance. So she put me in it, and, I sometimes think later, I was like, she made urgai out of me, achar, pickle. She soaked me into the rasa of dance. You can't say it didn't bother me. You can't say that. Of course, it's your blood. It's your sibling. Of course it bothers you. Of course it takes you through ups and downs. There's so much turmoil within you. There's one thing leaving everything and running away, but to live with it and still be detached and still be happy about the situation, for that I have to be eternally grateful to my parents for giving me that background and putting me into something so deeply elevating. What can be more elevating than our art forms? And she would always tell me, every day she'd tell me, don't dance for name, don't dance for fame. Dance is but a prayer. This was the line she used to say every day. It was for me an outlet. It was for me a release. It was for me a nanguram, an anchor which kept me grounded. Everything that came of its own accord later. Not that it came very easily. There were a lot of obstacles. There was a lot of criticism, but that's there for anything. There's nothing new about it. During adolescence, my brother had become violent also. And I don't blame him for it. He used to be violent, beat up people, beat up my mother, beat me up. Only person he was afraid of was my father. And father, being the workaholic he was, used to come only at 8 from work. But my mother would have been really attacked by him during the day. But when I came back from school or college, she'd greet me with a smile. From her, I learned resilience. how she went through so much and still always had a smile on her face. She always used to tell me, look at the half full glass, never the half empty. Because later on, when my brother was committed to the Institute of Mental Health here, my grandmother, paternal grandmother, would refuse to go and see him. She'd say, I can't see him like that. My mother would tell me, look at there were only 8 cottages with such differently abled people. Look at the others. They don't even have this facility. They don't have people to love them. Nobody comes and visits them. Now, you thank God that He's given us enough to keep him comfortable in whatever situation. So she taught me how to love him, and from that love gets strength. She taught me how to always look at the half full glass. And dance has given me that joy and that strength throughout my life and in my most difficult situations in life. I had been admitted into Kathak classes and Manipuri classes. I think the name of that school was Suratirtha, in Bengali Shurotirtho. And I was learning those styles, and I was also learning Rabindra Nritya from a lady who used to come and teach me at home. At that time, my mother came to know that there is this Devadasi teacher staying in a place called Kali Ghat, where the Kali temple is, and she's a very good teacher. And she had been brought over by the Tagore family. And they had asked Ariyakudi Ramanuja Iyengar to recommend somebody to come and teach Bharatanatyam there. And he chose and sent 2 people. One was my guru, Srimati T A Rajalakshmi. She was called Rajappa. And in my ignorance at that time, I never knew how respected she was. Only later, like I went danced in a place in my 30s near in Devakote, and somebody came and asked me, "Neen Rajappa Shishiyava? Have you learned from Rajappa?" I said, "Yes." She was my teacher for 10, 11 years. Those days we didn't say guru or akka or attai or anything. It was teacher. Rajalakshmi teacher, Rajappa teacher. I said, yes. He said, she was such a brilliant dancer. But you know, when the Devadasi Act was promulgated, they had to move out of their natural environments. And I think it took a lot of courage to be able to it's not just relocating physically, but it's also emotionally, socially, there must have been so much trauma and in the face of all this, courage to stand up. With her, the other person who was also sent was Maradappa Pillai. Everybody now knows of the Raja Rajeshwari Bharatanatyam Kala Mandir in Mumbai. So famous. And Kuppaiah Pillai was the father of Maradappa Pillai, Kalyanasundram Pillai, Mahalingam Pillai, and also the father of Karnamban. And he was the father-in-law of Govindaraja Pillai. Actually, it was Govindaraja Pillai who first went to Mumbai. Then the rest of the family relocated. Rajalakshmi, teacher, and Maradappa Pillai came to Calcutta. And all the dancers worth their name from Kolkata have either trained under Rajappa teacher or under Maradappa Pillai. My teacher was very, very strict and very, very disciplined. She and my father were a kind. Both so disciplined and strict. Classes were at 5:30 in the morning. And we'd have to get up at 4:30. My father would take me. And what would he do? He'd sit in the car with his bundle of railway files and he'd be working. And I'd come in. If I went in at 5:30, she would already be ready. She would have had her coffee and she would be sitting with takta curry waiting to start my class. It was necessary for that discipline because after finishing the class, I had to rush home, go to school, and at a later time it was to go to college when my parents went and spoke to her. And in the other conversations we had. They used to have with her. I used to, as a kid, be listening. She'd say, look, I used to dance a lot. And in fact, she was such a prime performer when Vazhuvoor Rajalakshmi and all were dancing. So she said, but I cannot compose. I have no experience of that. What my guru taught me, I will teach your daughter without changing anything. What அது ஒரு பொக்கிஷம், it is such wealth because she gave me that solid knowledge that she received from her guru. Those were the days when you ask questions. Even when you ask questions, you didn't get answers. And when later on I see some of the Tanjore quartet Varnams and all, I just think if she had told me the meaning of some of these, how would I as a 12-year-old or 10-year-old have danced at all? So it was just a general showing of hastas, and it wasn't hasta oriented as much as flavor oriented. And what is flavor? Flavor is rasa. That's why rasa was created so beautifully those days. And I had 10 solid years under her. But there was something with me, I was very shy to come on stage. You know, for instance, once the French railway people came down to Calcutta, and everyone said, Padmanabhan, your daughter should dance for them. So Kumari Chitra was supposed to dance. Kumari Chitra refused to come out of the room and dance. And this happened at Trichy. My grandmother had founded the Trichy Seva Sadan over there. And it was their annual function. So grandmother was very proud, Petiyatra, and she said they put it on the blackboard. Those days on the blackboard they put the program. Kumari Chitra dance. Kumari Chitra again refused to dance. It was very rigorous, and it was rigorous, but it was something that wasn't rigorous in a negative way, that you don't want to dance because your legs and arms are paining. But I always loved dance. I always loved movement. And it was very much down my way my heart traveled. So after 8-9 months, she said, called my mother and said, we can have her arangetram. So my mother told my father. My father said, I will book a hall, I will book the musicians, and everything will be ready, and the audience will be there, and baby Chitra will go away and say, I won't dance. How will I face my friends then? So, you know, they actually had another girl ready to dance in case I let everybody down. But I remember once I was sort of a tad bit nervous. I was just afraid of that crowd and anything, nothing else. But once the prayer was sung, I totally calmed down. Mine were not even the days where we did a Pushpanjali. So there was an Allah Ripu, and once I heard that music and went on stage, there was no looking back, and it was like the stage is my natural habitat. It became that way. There were no tailors, there were no patti saris, no Kanchipuram saris which could be bought there. Now you can get anything anywhere. My father, on one of his official visits to Madras, went with my cousin and purchased the 2 saris, and my measurements were all given to Chellam Pillai, who was the leading dance tailor at that time. In fact, he used to come once a year to Kolkata and other places and take measurements of the dancers. And those days, it wasn't like you wear a green sari and a green blouse. It was just ad hoc. And he used to bring these big kottadi blouse material with annapakshi or with rudraksham, and we had one red, one mustard, one green, and it was like that. And the davani was usually made of some nylon material at that time, which was not like the piece nylon, but looked more like tissue. And that's how the costumes were made. There were no flowers. So one of my mother's friends she was coming back to Kolkata. With her flew my Kanakambaram flowers from Madras for my Arangetram. Arangetrathik, I remember the first time when I went on stage with her. I had visualized the red puttu and everything. But red puttu, she actually removed it and kept a black gopuram. And she said, Drishtipanam. So that was her belief. And but I thought it looked very ugly. And then afterwards she modified it and we put a black dot here. I performed in many places after that. Solo, mainly solo, and pieces from the Margam or full Margams. And also in places like Ranchi, Durgapur, Tatanagar, around Kolkata, I have performed. You know, this Kulangal Nadai, which is so, there's a very, very slim line between that Kulangal being artistic and that Kulangal being Kamhida. That a beautiful grace, which is that Kulangal, where you made your steps smaller, shorter. Then you go up and come down, and once you do that, it becomes natural. But what happens is, I find young dancers take big steps and try to do that Kulangal. Then it looks not only exaggerated, it looks unnatural. It's very important for them to be natural. Now, for instance, Krishnani Begane Baro is Krishnani Begane Baro. It wasn't one Begane Baro. It wasn't one Begane Baro. Baro. Va. It related more to the language of gesture as it must have been before the language of words was created. Language of words brought in grammar. And once grammar came in, stylization would come in. Whereas this still retained that spontaneity of the most ancient language known to human beings, the language of gesture. Then again, using the body. It was not a takita. They said, Aramandi ukare, kaiye tirtama vechiko. It was, we had to keep our arms firm, we had to sit a good Aramandi. But valanjad, takita. It was never a straight. That's the way I was taught. I'm not saying that is the only correct way and the other ways are not correct. That was the beauty in those days. Each one had their identity. A person who learned from Vazhuvoor would have a certain Kulangal, from Pandalur a certain Kulangal, Tanjavur a certain Kulangal. All were beautiful. And I think they also, while they would also say that apdi pannakodadu paayarduna அப்படியே மான் மாதிரி துள்ளணும். They would never say, do பாய்தல் ஆடு, துள்ளி ஆடு. That's what Vazhuvoor used to say. துள்ளி ஆடு. அந்த குலங்களை அப்படியே அந்த அழகாக அந்த குலங்களை பார்வையும் போனோம், connect with the audience. இந்த அதே இது, if you do it in a slightly doing your eyes, rolling your eyes and all, the beautiful subtlety and the grace of even in the eyes, there has to be grace. I sometimes see in some dancers, youngsters, there is only one expression in their eyes. It's that or they widen it. But this, the twinkling of the eyes, it's not just keeping your eyes in a sachi or a samadrishti. It's not just that, it's also the essence behind a look like that. You have a sachi drishti. When do you use sachi? When you're looking stealthily somewhere or when you don't want them to know that you're looking. Ambal looks at her devotees with the Sacha Drishti. But that doesn't mean she doesn't have a look in her eyes, that there is no vision. Now, at the altar of technique and grammar, we forget the essence behind everything. Sometimes I don't care if the dancer doesn't know grammar. I mean, forgets the names of the hastas, the drishtis, the shiroveda. But can you translate it into action? Can you translate that essence into action? Because these things they didn't teach us. She will never get up and dance. She don't sit and do her abhinaya. She just expected you to absorb that. It wasn't that, being technically correct or something. That doesn't mean they were technically incorrect. The Lakshya existed before the Lakshana Grantha. Because without a Lakshya, where do you write a Lakshana Grantha? So there, the Lakshya is the dance. The transference of the dance was very beautiful, a beautiful experience. When you did Maran, automatically the body would come like that. And Maran and Amba Vidrana, I cannot forget that moment of Rajappa teacher. And the Maranoda Amba விட்டுட்டு அந்த விழச்ச அந்த அம்பு வச்ச அது நம்மளுக்கு அந்த we feel, isn't it, when it hits it? And then the second stage is your agony. It's not as soon as it comes, but அது வந்து ஹிட் பண்ணது. அதுக்கு முன்னாடி ecstasy. Love is on the way. Now ஒரு joy, and then hits you. Agony. So it was, they never taught you. They did it, and maybe people would say, you just copied it. But then it wasn't copying a movement, which is what has become the now of dance. You just take a YouTube, something on YouTube, and you look at it, you emulate all the hastas. You don't emulate, you copy them nowadays. Those days it was to emulate the spirit of it. Sometimes I feel, when I keep thinking of it, they were gurus. We are all only teachers. Because you keep correcting and tell them do this, do that. And we look into too many nitty-gritties. I'll never forget one incident, you see. She always used to tell me, Nanna tirthama aramandi okare, kaiya tirthama vechuko. And this is rather, I'm saying it tongue-in-cheek also, because should not be mistaken by people. The French delegation, this was another visit when they were coming down, and I was told to dance. By that time, I had lost my shyness and was happy dancing. So I was practicing sitting, core firm and Naramandi and everything. And she said, don't be so firm. வெள்ளக்காரனத்திற்கு கொஞ்சம் லூஸாக உடம்பை வச்சுட்டு ஆடணும். Of course, I was so naive, I didn't understand any of it. But I was just thinking how contextually, when you look at things, why she said that. It wasn't that she wanted it to become hither, but it was just what was expected of them by society in such a particular situation. Nothing can be really understood properly if we do not study it contextually. Somebody once told me, what did Rukmani Devi do? Some youngster. She set up an institution. What's the big deal? So many institutions. Have you thought of it in the historical context? Have you thought of the sociological context? Have you thought of the political context? And everything, awareness of being Bharatiya was the most important thing at that time. And bringing back and preserving our arts was so important. It's not easy when people used to criticize, especially girls dancing. At that time, to defy society to do it is different from setting up an institution as we are doing at every corner of every road. And we've diluted it to a great extent because of that. Now when I think of it, the slight sway of the hips was what she meant. At that time, I just felt awkward because I didn't understand. At 12, what do you understand? Nothing much. She never taught many Shingarapadas. She taught more of Arunachala Kavirayar's pieces or pieces, simple, Velan Varuvanodi, simple, not in-depth Shingarapadas. Because if I had done them well, I would have looked precocious. And if I didn't do them well, I would have looked dumb. So, யாருக்கு எது சொல்லிக் கொடுக்கணும்? That is the lesson we have to take from that. Teach what is suitable to the patra. My mother was very creative. She was very, very artistic. My mother's side, totally cultural, and almost the whole family was in the Indian Railways. And so it was that sort of a background. And my father's side, professors and academicians and scholars. So it wasn't something that we had money, ancestral money. We didn't have property. We didn't have anything. Not an affluent background. So she used to, with little things, make it look so artistic. She'd pick up a few twigs from the garden and arrange it so artistically. She had a very aesthetic eye. She had a very good ear for music. Amma used to dance very well. She used to play the veena. She learned from K.S. Narayanaswamy, who lived with the family in Delhi. So from grandfather to the youngest daughter, everybody learned from him. She used to play badminton. She used to go horse riding so many years ago in Delhi. But she used to, every summer, they used to come down to Madras, and she learned Bharatanatyam from Chinnaya Naidu. And he taught her more padams and shorter pieces. And I still remember, I was told by a contemporary of my grandmother that when they watched Rukku, she was called Rukku, Rukmani, dancing, a piece that Chinnaya Naidu had taught, everybody appreciated it, and the mothers whose daughters were learning from him went and asked him, "Ye master, neenga vande valanju valanjuலாம் ஆட சொல்லி கொடுத்திருக்கீங்களே, ஆனால் இப்படிலாம் நீங்கள் சொல்லி கொடுக்கலையே எங்கே போக அவருக்கு உடம்பு வளையிறது நான் வளைய சொல்லி கொடுத்தேன்." Simple. It is not this is right or that is wrong, but what looked good in a person. Again, that is the eye for what comes out best, to awaken and pick up and develop what is good in each dancer. So she's always been a very good critic of my dance. And after a performance, I used to be like that, because what is she going to tell me? Post-mortem, what is it going to be? So she was always there, my companion, my guide, and also awakening me to the spiritual strength that our art forms can give us. On the other side, I had my father, strict administrator, and he was known as one of the most brilliant engineers of his period. He trained me administratively, trained some of my students administratively, and I can say that we are good administrators because of that training. He comes from a very strong academic background and science-oriented background, and he said he wanted to go and do dance. But he was afraid it was a mere whim. So when I finished school, I said, I want to go to Chennai. It was in Chennai, Madras, and I want to learn Bharatanatyam there. He said, no, you must have an academic background. You've got an excellent teacher. If you didn't have a teacher here, I would say go. But then you have an excellent teacher, and she's teaching you traditional Bharatanatyam as it should be done. A very good foundation is important. Even if you want to create, without that foundation, nothing can be done. So you must finish your graduation. Of course, he had this little thing that I should do engineering or law, because my brother was not okay and he could not be educated. So that little desire was there within him. But then when he went on tour, my results came out, and my mother and I colluded, and I got admitted into English honors. But once I did it, he said, okay, finish it. After that, if you go, I myself will see to you it. You go to Chennai, you go to Madras, and you learn under a great guru. But then you should not leave it after 3 or 4 years and say, no, I can't continue it anymore. Because it's not easy to continue. Just remember that. It's not easy. No field is easy to come up in. But if you just say after that, no, I can't dance anymore, that I will not allow. You have to give me your word that till the end of your time, you will be dedicated and surrendered to the art. So here I had one spiritual, aesthetic pillar on one side, one strict administrative and disciplinary pillar on the other. And there I had my gurus in front of me. So I was lucky. I think I was very lucky. My father used to say, if there are 4 known solutions to a problem, find the 5th one. And my mother opening up my mind, there's beauty in everything. And it's not just in Bharatanatyam, it's in every movement is beautiful. And that movement is there in nature. Bharatanatyam was known so much by the dance in films and also the dance performances. And it was when I first saw Kamalaka dancing in Kolkata, I was 8. And I went backstage and I peeped. Of course, nobody bothered about this little brat standing over there. And I peeped. And then I told my mother, you know, that teacher of this Akka who's dancing, I'm going to learn from him one day. I said that when I was 8. And it happened when I was 19. I gave my word to my father that I would finish my BA honours. I finished. And then he was transferred to Lucknow. And as we were wondering how to go about it, my father saw an ad in the paper. It was in the Statesman. And this ad was an advertisement for the National Scholarship for the Performing Arts. So it was a scholarship for advanced study in any of the specified fields. So my father said, this will be a great help financially. For a middle-class family, it will be a very great help. So let us apply for it. Meanwhile, we shifted to Chennai. That was also a very difficult period for me. It's one side, the great Vazhuvoor, who never accepted students, took one look at me, made me dance and said, I'm taking her. And people were very surprised because after Kamala, he was not teaching much, the great Kamala. So he accepted me. So one side, great joy. The other side, my brother had to be institutionalized because of the violence and the lack of treatment. There were no institutions which looked at the differently able those days. My classes used to be at 8:30 in the morning. He lived near Luz Corner, Brindavan Street, so we used to go there every day. Even as Rajalakshmi teacher would have been ready by 8:25, Vazhuvoor would not be ready. It's very easy to say this is right and that is wrong, and she was so disciplined, It isn't that. It is what each person is. As she said, I cannot create and compose. I'll teach what I know in a disciplined manner. He was an absolute maverick of his times. He would be in a dream world, a creative world. He was so creative. At his time, how many boundaries he has pushed and how much beauty he has brought to dance. Sometimes he'd be in a mood to start immediately. Sometimes he wouldn't be in a mood to start. He would talk a lot. It was a very different experience for me. First of all, Chennai was different. Madras. For me, it was like Luz Corner. I found it very unaesthetic. This sort of felt barren, like a desert to me at that time. Even now you find it more compartmentalized. And there were these 2 Belgian mirrors in his place. Beautiful. So as usual, I love beautiful things. I was seeing all this when I went. Later on, I experienced what the purpose of it was. He'd say, teach some pose. And his style was noted for, especially at Tillada, for being sort of punctuated with poses inspired by sculpture. So he'd make you strike a pose and he'll say, Apdiye ninru. It'll be a Vattakal pose. You'll be standing on one leg. And then he'll go for a round until he goes around the house and comes back. You have to be in it. But it taught you how to experience core energy, how to experience balance, how to hold the foot. You realize if you keep it like an anchita and not a kunchita, you have less balance. So I realized all that we studied as documented theory became experiences. You do this. It was not, they never connected it and told you, but they made you experience it. You would talk about their purvikam, their ancestry. Not many people know that the Vazhuvoor clan taught Kuntavi, the Chola princess. One thing that made Vazhuvoor Ramaiah Pillai's style stand out was the musicality of the utterance of the jatis. Because there are many people who say we do the Vazhuvoor style, but I don't hear that musicality in the jatis. Or the way he trained his son Samraj to say the jatis. And he would say things like, you climb into the mridangam, you take the swaram from there, and you experience it. And that taught me so much. This wasn't a direct class. It wasn't meant as a class. It was meant to make his son experience it. So I automatically started relating with the Mridanga Sollu when I started developing Natvangam for myself. And today I feel everyone who says they have even learnt a little from the great maestro should make an effort to retain that musicality. My first grounding was England. So my English was what would be accented, very British accented. And I think this was sort of, why did it continue even after I came to India? It was because my professors were either educated in Oxford or in Cambridge. So that accent stayed. But after I came to Madras, and after a year in Madras, I got married. I was staying with my in-laws. I one day picked up the phone. It was a call for my father-in-law. So I went and called him, and he went and picked up the phone. After talking for some time, he came back laughing. So we all looked at him very puzzled. He said, my friend asked me, who is that Vellakari staying in your house? Because my English was so British. Then I realized I need to drop that accent. If I really need to mingle and be one here, one with, I deliberately worked at dropping the accent. And my Tamil, I didn't have any Tamil because I studied English, I studied Hindi, I studied Sanskrit, and Bengali. And I used to speak Tamil at home with my parents, grandparents, but I spoke like a Bengali. So they used to tease me in Chennai. They would say, your Tamil is like a bong's Tamil. So then that too, I decided I had to correct it. These 4 years with Vazhuvoor was an eye-opening in a different sense. With Rajalakshmi, it was the foundation, thorough foundation, the grammar. And with Vazhuvoor, I found my wings. He would sometimes make us wait the whole day, and we come back without having danced even 1 minute. There was a lot of criticism. There were just 4 of us, or 3, which later became 3, learning together from him. And they'd say, we go there and Vadyarappa sitting and talking, and he's not taking our class, we only dance for Nallaripu, all criticism. That's because they could not look beyond the immediate. You sat and listened to him, you realized that is the lesson. He'd be talking about aesthetics, he'll talk about nature, he'll talk about the history of the parampara, he'll talk about those days and in comparison these days. What is all this? It's not codified history or theory, but it is experienced life. It is theory which has been experienced, and they would think it's all a waste of time. And he used to say, think. And we all used to laugh and we'd say, Vadyarappa knows one English word, think, he tells us to think. But when you think of it, really think of it, you realize how potent that word is, how important it is to soak in something, how important it is to rethink, to revisit, to meditate, to search, to research, how important all these things are for growth, for creativity. So there were so many things. I would say my experience from learning from him is not having learned four Varnams, but my greater experience is having learned how to experience the history, to experience the culture, the ethos, how to differentiate between good and bad, to understand aesthetics of sound, of movement, of color. These were not taking me step by step through everything, but it was awakening me to these concepts. We didn't have sessions of learning jatis, cholkattes with talam. It was not done. In those days, the Natvanars, they said the jati, and you learnt the jati and you danced the jati. It wasn't like today we teach with talangu takadika. I very often question, is it correct what we are doing? Is that why we are only teachers and not gurus? They didn't produce many dancers, but the ones they produced were extraordinary. Are we sacrificing quality at the altar of quantity? These are all questions that are still in my mind. Teachers are good, not that they are not. Dancers are good, not that they are not. But how many moments do I take back from me when I go from a performance? He had pushed the boundaries of repertoire. He had brought in so many like Pashurams and Tevarams and Uttakada Venkat Subbadaya Sahityams. And he always looked for something new, and he would always bring them in, have people write new Varnams, and he introduced them into the repertoire. It became very difficult for him to travel. I was beginning to travel all over India, Delhi. He came with me to Delhi. I remember my Ashoka theatre performance. They used to have a dance evening. He came with me. And the performance was introduced as Natyakala Kesari Vazhuvoor Ramaiah Pillai. And he walked onto stage. Presents his prime disciple. His present prime disciple, Chitra. After that, I was going to Madurai, I was going to Bombay, I was going to Calcutta. He could not travel. His health did not permit it. He tried to get his son Samaraj and me to work together. But somehow that didn't work out, and I used to miss him being there. And then I told him, can you please arrange someone to do the Natvangam for me, because it's difficult to accept performances. There used to be this unwritten rule in those days that, only the parampara would do it, one. And unless he or a particular Natvanar sought out somebody and said, I hand over the symbols to you, you wield the symbols, no one would accept. So, though I did know so many people, nobody wanted to disrespect him and do Nat, because at that stage it was still, I was asking whether they do Natvangam for his pieces if I dance them, because of the touring nature of my performances. He said, you can do it with whomever you want. He gave me carte blanche, but if I do it with whomever I want, I can't do anything that he has taught me. And my 4 years of sitting at his feet and imbibing, how would I? And after that, it's very difficult to think that you can replace any of that with your own thing. Then there were only 17 days left. I had a performance at RR Sabha, not the old RR Sabha, which had potholes on the stage. It had a cement floor. I had to create something, a full margam to perform. Performances weren't 45 minutes and 1 hour those days, 2.5 to 3 hours. I had to create an entire margam. But you see, meanwhile, I had already been learning all mridangam, shullikattis and everything from a mridangist. I had been equipping myself in the other important cognate forms that an artist, dancer should be equipped. That is music, talam, nuances of Natvangam as he taught Samraj, searching and looking for new sahitya, extension of repertoire. I had been equipping myself, but then I had to take the first step out to present something totally on my own. Then somebody brought this person, Mohan Raj, to me, who had a very good voice. Then I sat with him. It was not just composing an entire margam, but by that time I had already worked on all these aspects, so I knew what was wanted. But it was also training in orchestra, which I didn't have to do earlier. So there were Natavanar, I had to train him on Natvangam. I had to compose the jatis. I run it by my mridangist to check that they were grammatically correct. Then setting the adavis and teaching it to them, him getting a good musician. I must say, others like A A Rajalakshmi, Vazhuvoor Ramaiah and all, who were the doyens at the next level of doyens, they supported me so much. When they knew I was struggling, I was trying to do this, they all came for that first performance to see how it went. I could not do any of the pieces that he had taught because no Natavanar will do Natvangam for that. So I had to step out and create my own repertoire and proceed my way. It was when I was learning from Vazhuvoor Ramaiah in 1972 that I got married to Viswesh. We actually met through a common friend in the December of the earlier year, and we found out that we had a lot in common, which is passion for art. And it wasn't just like Bharatanatyam and Carnatic music or something like that. In fact, we used to meet at a common doctor friend's place because he had the long playing record of Swan Lake. And we both used to meet and listen to that. That was like a date for us. But he was crazy about music, and it's in his genes. His mother was the great G.N. Balasubramaniam, G.N.B.'s own sister. And her voice was beautiful. She used to sing very well. And my father-in-law was Secretary Music Academy. But in those days, it was not looked upon very favorably. Sort of somebody wants to become a musician, somebody wants to become a dancer. Dancer, of course, also had a lot of negativity attached to it. Relatives told my parents, how are you letting her into dance? How can you let your daughter become a dancer? Because it wasn't the done thing. But music also, even when you had a successful musician like GNB in the family, it was not encouraged because there is no steady income. There is no certainty. There is nothing to ensure you that you will come to the top, that you will have a regular income every month. These are stabilities what a lot of people look for. And here, there's no stability. So, even though he loved music so much, and it came naturally to him, he learnt Veena from Pichumani Iyer, and he used to sit for music classes when my mother-in-law was learning from Kalyana Raman sir. He used to learn all the Urupudis and pick up everything. But when he said he wanted to learn the mridangam, they did not even put him in regular mridangam classes. Regular classes were not favored. The mridangata vaasi ennatha panna pora, sort of a thing. From the background that we all come from, they'd rather the son was a clerk in a bank than a musician. Besides Carnatic music, which was there in the family, he started learning Western classical music. He was very passionate about the music. He later went on to master many types of the guitar. The bass guitar, the classic guitar, the flamenco guitar. In fact, he's a self-taught flamenco guitarist. But he was doing his CA. That it was considered very the in thing to be a CA or to be an engineer or to be a lawyer. To be forced to do that, I can understand, because my administrative father forced me to understand the concept of accounts, because he said you have to manage everything. Not there was a lot of everything, but everything you have to safeguard it. You, with a brother like this, I used to hate it. I can understand how he felt. But he was doing his CA. He had set up a company also. But then he was miserable in it. And he used to see me going every day to dance class, coming back so happy on a high. He told me one day, I'm feeling very jealous of you. I said, why? He said, you do what you love. I'm not doing anything I love. My love has only become a hobby, but I want my love to be my passion. Then he actually came and spoke to my father. And he said, I'm coming and speaking to you because you have given your daughter to me and you will expect that she should be comfortable. I will look after her. But as such, now I feel I don't want to continue in this, the line I am in. I don't want my CA. He used to joke, I'm not a chartered accountant, I'm a shattered accountant. And my father said, why are you asking me? He said, no, I need to have your opinion on what you think. But because your daughter's life is also part of this. So my father, one of the leading engineers on Indian Railways, tells his son-in-law, anyone can become an engineer or a doctor or a lawyer. Fairly good. But very few can be a musician who can give joy to the world. And you have it in you, it's your gift, go ahead and do it. So this sort of support, emotional support, we didn't have any financial support that way because nobody was rich enough to throw around money. But the emotional support, which is more important to spur you on, which parents should understand, which family should understand, whichever field, whatever a youngster is doing. So that is how he stepped into music full time. He used to play regularly for M.S. Vishwanathan. He was, and Dakshinamurthy sir. Later, of course, he played for Ilayaraja, played for Rahman, all that was there. But he was playing more of film music, though qualified in Carnatic music also. He loved it. He somehow enjoyed it. A day came. It was a day because he had gone to Bombay for recording. And whom was he recording for? He was recording for R.D. Burman. He used to go from here to play for R.D. Burman and S.D. Burman and Lakshmikant Pyarelal. They used to want somebody to play the classic guitar and the flamenco guitar. So he used to go, stay there for days, play for a few films and then come back. I was here, he was there. That's how. And he once jokingly told someone, Chitra, we meet at airports and railway stations. So there was a big rumor, their marriage is breaking up because this is up. They didn't realize it was understanding for each other's desires that kept us where we were. That's why our marriage always remained young. During the recording, his words, I saw a very saintly looking person sitting and playing this very delicate instrument, the Kashmiri santoor, Pandit Shivkumar Sharma. And he said, I just fell sashtangam at his feet and said, will you teach me the Santur? Shivji was strict. He said, you play guitar, you play veena, you sing, you compose, you do film music, you have to give up everything. And then I will teach you the Santur. Youngsters today should understand how strict it was. The Guru, it was like Ekalavya's thumb. Give me your thumb is Guru Dakshina. Give me all your other music and I will teach you Santur. Then Vishwesh said, I'll give up everything else. But only one thing, I've started singing for Chitra. Please allow me to do that and to compose for her. Everything else I gave. So he gave up everything. It was a big demand and a big sacrifice. And he worked on the Santur. He used to go there for classes, come back, and Shivji said, okay, you can play a few recordings for the guitar because you need sustenance. He felt he should play Carnatic music on the Santur finally. He was playing performances here, there, and jugalbandis, and he had developed, and he was in demand for playing Santur in film music. And Shivji allowed that. He became a very respected Santur player, and of course, our combination as vocalist and dancer was something many people looked forward to. Life is always full of ups and downs. Once we take a janma, we have to go through all of it. But sometimes, personally, at certain points, what is happening can pull you down. In my case, particular time, Vishwesh's health deteriorated so much. He was in and out of hospitals. And for me, I used to say, TR, transfer of residence, I'm going to the hospital with him. And TR, I'm coming back. And there has been a period in my life when I have only sat in a cane chair next to his bed in ICCU 24/7 for as long as 6 weeks. Because he refused to fight for his life unless I sat by his side. So the doctors allowed me to stay there. At that time, every morning, I could smell the fear in the ICCU. One going for open heart, one going for valve replacement. You could actually feel the palpable fear. And Vishwesh himself was going through so many ups and downs, more downs, very little ups. But at that time, you learn to look beyond yourself. You learn to look at another person's suffering as yours. I remember going every morning at 4 o'clock from bed to bed, saying prayers for them. I remember telling a mother outside, your son has opened his eyes. These little things make you more humane. If you do not relate to life, this will not come into you. But whatever detachment you develop when the suffering is going and you're seeing the person you care for so much suffering deeply, when it happens, it's not easy to face. It's a total vacuum in one's life. And especially in my case, it was also my partner in life and my partner in art. It was a very, very, very difficult period, but people who are dear to me really helped me in staying strong. My art gave me that strength. The arts, all the arts I have loved and continue to love so much have given me the strength. And above all, the presence of a spiritual guru in my life has given me all the strength that one needs to face all problems in one's life. That hand has held me and taken me forward. I was with Vazhuvoor till 74. After that, I was working at extension of my repertoire, Margam, and creating pieces and training musicians and training natodas, mridangis, traveling. Those days it was like even small places at Sabhas. Chennimalai had a Sabha, Pallipalayam had a Sabha, Karangalpalayam had a Sabha, Kuti Sabhas. So if I got invited for one performance, say in Coimbatore, I used to live virtually with the railway train timetable. So I would work out a circuit. I had to make it viable financially. We were paid 500 rupees per performance. And that 500 rupees per performance was for the whole orchestra, everything, and train fare. So I couldn't just do Coimbatore and come. So I'd go say to Udamalpet, then I'll go to Pollachi, then I'd go to Pallipalayam, go to Kargalpalayam, go to Karur, go to Chennimalai. We only know today of Chennimalai as textiles. But Chennimalai Sabarundade, go to Madurai. I used to create my own circuit like that, to do my ticketing, take my musicians, go perform everywhere. I didn't have a makeup man. At that stage, I didn't have a light person. But it was lovely, going from place to place, dancing, seeing different people, figuring out what each people liked more. And you learn about presentation. You don't just get stuck to one sort of a presentation. If you only dance for elitist audiences, you don't understand what the other layer of audiences need. And certain places where they recognize old pieces, it's good to include them. And certain places where they want you to introduce new pieces, it's good to introduce them. I learned a lot about programming in these tours. So it's not just because I do this at Music Academy, I will go and do it in Karur Sangeeta Sabha. What reaches out there? What is the Ishta Devata of the people there? Now, I remember going to Visakhapatnam for a performance, and there was a particular temple, I don't remember now. Somebody came and wrote a song and gave it to me and said, will you dance to this? I gave it to Sethuraman and I said, we'll do it at the end. Ninga Srila Padirungo, and I'll just follow what you're doing. And so, something so relevant and close to the hearts of the people. Now everything is pre-programmed, and unfortunately, because taking musicians is also expensive, everyone records it. But I may want to do a particular line 24 times in one place and 64 times in another, depending upon the audience response. That freedom is lost. And the joy. So this is how I used to travel everywhere, even North India. 1974. My first invitation to perform abroad came to me. This was for the Autumn Festival in France, Paris. There was an impresario who came and watched dance throughout India, and he chose me. I was 24 years old. He wanted to take me with an orchestra. He asked ICCR to sponsor me, and ICCR refused. So he said, doesn't matter. I will take her let her come with tape, but I'll do it with 2 tickets and let them come. So my first trip was to Paris with tape music. We learned a lot of things, learned about lighting, learned about sound and how to present again to different audiences. And Paris, they never liked anybody to talk. So you had to communicate, and notes would be given to the audience. It was an interesting thing. On that trip, Vishwesh came with me as an escort and also looking after the technicalities of my music. After we came back, he was busy with his film music. I was busy with my performances. So I asked him whether he would just compose music for me for my first dance production, which was Devi Ashtarasa Malika. Which, by the way, I was told women should not take up such subjects because it's very spiritual and I guess it's a patriarchal society. But then, for whatever it was worth, I studied it and I presented the subject, which Vishwesh put to music. It was a big hit. He began that way. But after that, he suffered a very serious health setback. He got a massive heart attack, which was so massive when it happened that it was not thought that he would survive. Dr. Cherian was his doctor. He tried all sorts of treatment, and Viswesh would not calm down. Padatal, 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 padatal. Cherian came and told me, Chitra, he has to sleep, he has to rest. Do something. I brought Shivji's Santoor tape and played it. And the heart, which was beating and so erratic, totally calmed down to a soothing, regular pattern. In fact, he was not allowed to climb stairs. He wasn't allowed to go out. They said you cannot go for recording anymore. So his heart couldn't take it, even though for important sections, he would go. I'd give the whole paraphernalia of his diet and everything, he'd go. But it had to be for a very limited period of time, and then he'd have to come back. So here is this guy whose life is music, and music is life. What does he do? I asked the doctor, how do you expect him to live as a vegetable? I said, I would rather he goes, instead of living a miserable life like that, a person who has just lived, has drowned, he has flourished, he has breathed music. You want this sort of person not to have anything to do. No, it's risky. I said, what's the point having a life like that? And I discussed with Vishesh. She said, you're right. I'd rather not live at all. So we took the very serious step of, yes, he will step into music again. Okay, you can't go for recordings because it's hectic those days. No need. Mind you, that means our income, losing out on our income. You sometimes have to take such serious decisions in your life. You can't say, oh, what do I do? We have no income. Yes, we didn't have income. What to do? Because between me and him, I was having this tight performance schedule. I started teaching. Dakshina was given to me was 50 rupees by each student. Well, how could we live on that? And his recording used to get 80 rupees a recording. We gave up so many things. What was our priority? I don't even think it's giving up. It's a question of priority. What do you need more? I said, okay, this is one way of your remaining in music is, of course, you're composing music for me. Step in as a second singer for my performance. You can't be the lead singer because you don't have the health for it. But I have a good singer. You sing with him. And that way, you'll slowly build up. And then, God willing, you can take on as lead singer, which is what happened. So we went on our first tour to Singapore, Malaysia, and Australia. That was in 1980 it began, and slowly it built up. We had also gone to the UK and Europe. The 80s in my life and early 90s, mid-90s, was spent in a lot of international touring. We began together as singer-dancer in 80. As time passed by, we got to be known as a couple who were looked forward to as a combination on stage. Of course, we used to have a lot of fights. Of course, we used to have a lot of arguments. Then we'd say, we are not husband and wife. We are dancer and singer. So this is how we will talk. I always concentrated on keeping the numbers small because I felt quality was very important. And I think I was motivated by the gurus of yesteryears, where they didn't have huge classes and factory lines of dancers being produced. I wanted to go towards something. What was I going towards? All the inputs that I have received from different disciplines. I've always believed that you study, you read, it's not just theory, but about arts contextually. When you study, the application of it is more important than the content. Because very often we come across people who have studied a lot, but I do not see any application of what they've studied in their art form or whatever presentation. It's important to be able to apply. And I think that has been at the root of the way I developed the pedagogy. So since then, 1980, So many group productions have been mounted, and also the solo thematic productions. Vishwesh composed and created the music. I researched the text. So it was a constant voyage of discovery for me. It was so exciting. Not all of them have been commissioned by someone giving us money for the production. In fact, except I think Meera, nothing was commissioned. I had to find the wherewithal for everything. And not coming from a very affluent background, it wasn't very easy. And also, Vishwesh and I were both in the same field, which had no stability and which didn't bring in monies, as you say. It was important to rework on jewelry there was, to rework on costumes, to rework on sets, to think creatively. We never got a sponsor for performances. Payments, as we know, are what they are. Dance is not lucrative. We all know that. Every performance, major appearance, a brochure was brought out. And this brochure or souvenir would have ads. And I had to reach out to people I knew, get ads. And the ads were affordable for these people. Not like looking for gold sponsors and silver sponsors. It's not like that. So I used to go out with a begging bowl, beg for money, take out my own money, and all our other ornaments and things have all gone into the art form. I don't regret it. I love it. I will not change it for any other life. But one thing I have been very fortunate in, and I had a space. I had a space for this. My parents' house. Ruku and Padmanabhan, they had built this house for themselves, but then when they found I was so passionately into dance, they gave us this house. And when they saw I was teaching in this space, pushing the sofas, there was a big terrace on the first floor. I had gone for this first trip to France. I came back and saw a dance hall built. And my father, who was at that time general manager of Seshai Paper and Boards, he left my mother here to supervise the building. And she had it built. They said, this is our gift to dance and music. So I have given them my word that this will not be commercialized. And this space will be used for spreading dance, music, our art forms, and especially the spiritual wealth of our heritage. The least I can do for my parents, who have given me so much, who have sacrificed, that I could dance.